What's up, the internet? It's me, it's Kyle. We're back. Part 2 of day 2 of the posted anniversary for the EXP. Now, if you're just tuning in, you're just joining us, welcome. If you're back, thank you for coming back. Thank you for hitting that refresh button. You're going to notice in a lot of our commercials, we've got these little white box things with some dots. Get your phone out, scan those things, and then do what it says. Just throwing it out there. Trust me, I'm not trying to steal your information. I'm just trying to get you to give it to me. So I'm going to bring back in my cohort and compatriot for this weekend, Miss Jenna of the Two-Handed Wave. And I am going to bring our next guest has maybe the coolest streaming headphones of anybody we're going to have on, especially cooler than mine, which are super basic. His have cat ears to go with Critter, I assume. But, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hutchison, person held responsible for Big Dog Inc.
Yeah, that's what it says right there, right? That's
yeah.
I mean something. It's on the internet, so it has to be true.
Sure. So, I'm just going to start here when I ask the super simple question. So, Tom, what's new? We haven't actually talked in a while. This might be the longest we've gone without like interacting about what's happening with Big Dog Inc. in a long time. So, what's new?
I don't know. That's the hard question, I guess. I mean, what's new is really nothing, because we're always in the process of just doing what we always do, which is making comics, doing Kickstarters, fulfilling Kickstarters. We're fulfilling 2 Kickstarters in the next 2 months, while we're prepping for the next Kickstarter to launch in October, which will be the third and final portion of this arc of The Legend of Oz that'll be launching in October. So it's always sort of a constant cycle of create, Kickstarter, fund, fulfill, do again. And so
work, fund.
Correct. Yes. And we're in the work period right now as we get ready to launch. So that's basically Big Dog Inc. We actually did a con yesterday, went out to Wheaton, Illinois for Mighty Con. It was a little con that I used to do all the time when I lived in Illinois. There was an Oz convention that got canceled, and it happened to be that weekend. And then I just happened, like on last Wednesday, I just happened to see them post that they were doing it this weekend. So I was like, yo, somebody can come take a spot if you got a spot. And they were like, yeah, come on in. So we did a con yesterday. It was this little one-day show. So what's truly new is somehow I went there with a Big Dog Inc. booth, about 6 short boxes of comics to sell. We sold a bunch of comics. We did really well. But I also came back with 13 long boxes of comics that I bought from somebody else's booth. Because, you know, I do the Midnight Collector show on the Comic Book Shopping Network, and we have 3,000 new books to go through now. So
there you go.
Isn't that just always how it goes? Isn't that just always how it goes?
That was not the plan. And thank God I emptied the van before I went down there and went down with like a kind of a skeleton booth, because otherwise I would have never been able to get it all in the van. But, you know, Tetris skills, us 90 kids, the Tetris skills are real. And, you know, and that should be taught in school, I think.
Yes.
Well, who would have known that all those hours of Who would have known that all those hours of playing Tetris were just practices for someday having to stack short and long boxes?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Or how to get your toys in the closet or whatever you need to do. It's a real thing. Right. Tetris should be a legitimate like 7th period class. Like just come play Tetris for 2 hours and then go home.
What's funny about this wall is half of it is the 6 inches. And then we have the deluxe ones, and then I have the regular ones. But none of them look out of order.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
That's the interesting part of this that I want to talk to you about, Tom, is the Midnight Collector show and kind of the diversity of what Big Dog is involved in now. Sure. Doing a little more of the slinging in addition to the publishing.
Sure.
But you just had all summer. You ran and I'm completely blanking on the name only because I don't have my notes here. But the summer camp project.
Oh yeah, Camp Rad Dog. Yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah, Camp Rad Dog. Thank you.
Right.
I should remember that. It's 3-letter words. But so that was successful. That was a lot of fun to watch and to participate in. From a viewer standpoint on the outside. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
You gotta always be repping, man. You gotta always be repping.
It's true. Always be repping. I'm choosing to rep Kevin from The Office. That's what.
There you go. There you go.
So that was interesting and that was fun to watch. How is that different? I know you worked with Totally Rad Comics on that. How is that different from just the normal process of going through your cycle on a book?
Only a little bit, in that Jim and I, Jim Noble from Totally Rad Comics, we kind of vaguely talked about how to set this thing up. Like, we knew, okay, we're going to have one basic cover. We're going to have 5 variant covers. We're going to add on 5 variant covers when we do our Camp Olympics connecting puzzle things. But the rest of the campaigns really were kind of open to interpretation. However he wanted to do his, however I wanted to do mine. Like, he did a bunch of metal covers and stuff. I didn't do that. I just decided it wasn't going to do that on this campaign. So it was kind of screwed up, because the whole point was to create a balanced 2-camp campaign where either way you went, you got essentially the equivalent things, and then you had the competition to see who was better at the end. But we really didn't do that. We did that with the most basic core element of start with 6 covers, add 5, and then do whatever the hell you want the rest of the way. But because I had he's only been doing this a couple of years, I've been doing this for 11, so I had a lot more product from a trade paperback perspective. So I had a bunch of what we called summer reading, where people that didn't know who we were could catch up on things that we did, and understand who these characters that were now running around and diving in the lake. Like, who the hell are these people? Like, I don't understand who Dorothy is. Oh, she's from this Legend of Oz thing. Who's this cat girl character? Oh, that's from Critter. Okay, so I did that with the summer reading portion of it. And then Jim on his side, he just kind of did a regular Totally Rad. I can't say it was regular, because normally his campaigns have like 75 covers or something. So he kept it very, very light. But he just kind of kept adding covers here and there, just kind of doing whatever he wanted to do. And that was fine, because again, we didn't really lock it all in. We just kind of were like, do whatever we want. But we both, when we talked, we both kind of were like, if we kind of hit this number, we probably did okay. And we went way past that number. Both campaigns went way past the we did okay number. So we're both super happy with the result. We definitely both got crossover eyeballs, which was kind of half the point as well. It's like, we know that there's people that, we know for a fact there were people that were backing Jim's campaigns that had no idea who I was. And we got messages from them saying, yeah, I've used to back Jim all the time. I've never heard of Big Dog. So now I got my first Big Dog book. So that was the point, is we want to have fun. We want to give fans on both sides something to do, something to talk about, something to enjoy. And then we want to try and cross over the audiences so that both campaigns can, well, not both campaigns, but both companies and brands can, get a little elevation.
So I'm going to ask this question the only way I know how to ask this question. If we were going to make a Camp Rad Dog animated series, is it Meatballs, or is it like Sleepaway Camp?
It's so there's actually a very specific answer. On the Camp Crossover side, it's Meatballs. On the Camp Retro side, for Jim, it's Meatballs 4. That's legitimately like how it works.
Why'd you make me have to remember Meatballs 4?
Listen, that's his fault. I didn't even know it existed until he told me it did. And then I suffered through it too, so everybody else has to.
It's like Karate Kid 3. Like, remembering, or now I have to remember that, and it makes my heart hurt. Like,
yeah. Yeah, Meatballs 4 starring Corey Feldman. And in fact, the covers, the two primary covers for the campaigns on my side, it was the poster for Meatballs, homaged with my characters and me in Bill Murray's place. And then for Jim, it was the Meatballs 4 movie poster with him in Corey Feldman's place. So we went full Meatballs on this whole thing.
I love it. And I know your affinity for the 80s, kind of movies and stuff. So that's why I ask, is it Sleepaway Camp, which is a classic 80s camp horror, or Meatballs, which is a classic, for the young people?
Yeah. For the people that have no idea what we're talking about. It's like when I was at the con yesterday, someone was looking at a Critter cover that we did that was an homage to the Cannonball Run, which is 40 years this year. And they were like, oh, this is really cool, but I don't know what the Cannonball Run is. And I was like, oh my God, how old am I right now? I'm talking to people that don't know what the Cannonball Run is. Because these are two dudes that were probably maybe 15 years old, maybe. And I sat there and I was like, okay, let me tell you about the Cannonball Run. And they were just like, their heads exploded. They're like, how do I not know about this movie? I was like, dude, just go find the movie. You'll love it. They bought the book. We did an homage to the Lamborghini girls with Critter and Blue Jay sitting in the Lamborghini. That was a huge movie when I was a kid. I have very, very specific memories of that movie. And so we did that, and it was a nice, we created Big Dog Inc. fans and Cannonball Run fans at the same time yesterday. So it's all good.
Nice.
I had to explain Caddyshack to a couple of the people who work at the store the other day. They're like, Caddyshack, what's that? And I'm like,
it's painful. It's painful.
Like, I'm not that old, right?
I've had two of those moments in the last week. This week, Pearl Jam's 10 turned 30.
No.
Yeah, it came out August 27th, 1991.
Yeah, the 90s don't count. They don't count for anything.
Okay.
It's fair. It's fair.
Just bypass that decade.
Some people watching may know I've been going through some medical stuff, and I've had a nurse, and I made a Brady Bunch reference, and she'd never seen the Brady Bunch.
No.
And I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the morgue. You can just find me there. Like, I'm done. So I get the question I was heading there is what role is pop culture in your fandom playing a bigger role in what you're doing these days? Because I do see so many more of the homages and stuff, and that may just be that's what my eye is drawn to. So I wanted to ask.
For Big Dog Inc., we dodge that stuff as much as possible. Now, there's a time and a place for it. Like when we did the camp thing, obviously we're going to talk about Meatballs. We're going to do things for it, so on and so on. When the Cannonball Run came around, it was like last year with Showgirls. Last year, Showgirls celebrated its 25th anniversary. No one did anything. It was just a completely like, oh, yeah, okay. So guess what? Big Dog Inc. stepped up to the plate, and we homaged Showgirls along with Penny for Your Soul. So this year, again, same thing. American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Cannonball Run. Dear God, this is literally what our current culture is all about right now. And somehow pop culture and society is dropping the ball on celebrating everything that is behind you, Jenna. I mean, they're Indiana Jones pops and all this kind of stuff, right? So I think there's a time and a place for them. And that's why we did the Cannonball Run thing, because I knew no one else was going to do it. And there are definitely people who do it a lot, Marat Michaels, but that's like his brand. I mean, that's what he does. He does that on purpose.
Right.
A lot of other places just use it to try and grab a little extra attention, which is kind of the other point. It's because even if they don't know what your brand is, they're going to go, oh, I understand that reference. That's Ghostbusters. That's, whatever it happens to be. So I get the point. But my concern is that particularly with new people that are doing it and trying to build their own brands and their own comics or whatever it is that they're doing, if you are synonymous with someone else's brand, you are not a brand. And that's where it gets a little bit murky. Like I said, like Marat just goes all in. Like, we are making homage things. This is what this particular thing is. Cool, go do it. But when other companies are just like, every time, like, we're gonna homage, it's just like, well, okay, I mean, that's fine, but I kind of would rather see more I want you to do something that's so good that someone else wants to homage it. That's what I want to see from people, and so that's what we try and do in our cases with the stuff that we do. Is we just try to present awesome art and that showcases our characters in the light that they need to be shown in for them to grow and exist on their own versus, oh, I remember when you did a Ghostbusters Legend of Oz cover. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So it's time, it's place, it's purpose, it's context. But it is here and it's not going anywhere. So what I tell people on the other side of that coin is if you're going to do it, go deep. Stop homaging freaking McFarlane covers. We've all seen them. You can't make them any better. Go deep, like we did for Penny for Your Soul. We did a Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Phoebe Cates homage, and people lost their minds. They're like, dude, that's so cool. I was like, yeah, I know. Just go deep, man. Like the Cannonball Run, go deep. People will get these references, but the more that you go deep into some of this stuff, the more unique what you're doing from an homage standpoint will be. End rant.
Yeah. I just want to let it sit there for a minute because it is so important to understand the difference between having your own brand and paying homage to something and then latching on to something else. And it is a very thin line to walk. And I think you just said it as concisely as I've heard anyone say it. So one of the things that Big Dog Ink is known for the cover art. I mean,
sure,
the interior art as well, but you know, it's the art in the books at Big Dog Ink is arguably the best on the market. So
there's some right there.
Yeah.
Got a rep, right?
There you go.
Right. Always be shilling. Absolutely.
I wish I had my Legends of Oz here.
Is there a piece of art that you've had done that didn't get put out that you regret?
That didn't get put out?
Or like that maybe it didn't come in on time, or that, you know, it didn't quite work for whatever reason. You're like, man, this is still so cool. I just don't have a use for it right now.
No, everything. Well, no, I can't say that everything that's come in has been used. Just because of our weird roller coaster world when we were on our own, and then we were with Aspen, and then we came out of Aspen. There's stuff that has not been used, but not because we didn't want to use it. It's just we didn't have everything stopped and started and start. You know, and we kind of went through that process. So a lot of that stuff, like for Oz, for example, we had a whole bunch of stuff that we had done that we finally got to use as we got to the Legend of Oz's 10-year anniversary this year. And so a lot of that stuff that's been sitting in files for the last 5 years is now being used. And eventually all of it will be used as we get to whatever these things are that we need them to be. There have definitely been covers that in my mind, I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be an amazing one. Everyone's going to want this. And the response was, you know, lukewarm. And then there's definitely been covers where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, man. And then people come racing for it. So, you know, the reality is just throw it against the wall. It'll stick or it won't. But as long as you were happy with, because it has to come from you, right? So if you're the writer or the creator or the art director or whatever, and you were like, look, I made the decision to make this piece of art and you were happy with that, then that's all you can do. From there, you know, everything is customer based. I mean, they're going to buy what they want, whether it's story, whether it's character, whether it's artist, doesn't matter. They're going to buy it whether they like it or not. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. They're going to buy it if they like it or not. So all you can do is just try and do your best and be happy with the decisions that you made, with the artist that you picked. And if it didn't work, you just kind of analyze it. Okay, did they not like the style? Did they not like the concept of the cover? Did they, you know, what didn't work? And then just try to not do that again.
Do you have a favorite piece that's ever been done?
That's a tough call. There are moments in time where I have pieces that was like, this was special. Like when we had Shannon Mayer's first ever cover on The Legend of Oz, we published him for the first time as a comic. That's a moment in time that's like, that's a great piece. It's a great moment. It's a great, on at the time our best-selling book and so on, et cetera, et cetera. And when we had J. Scott Campbell come on and do his Scheherazade cover, it's like, again, another key moment in time for us, for Big Dog Inc. from Growth. So there's a lot of covers that I love, a lot of pieces that I love. But it's more like a nostalgia effect. It's like I see it and I'm like, man, that takes me back to that moment when I first saw it, and I'm like, holy cow, this is going to be great. I can't wait to get this to the Big Dog fans and so on. So I think that's kind of how it works. Is it's sort of like a time machine. You see something and you're like, damn, I remember when we talked about it. It's like I remember Ryan Otley doing his cover for Critter, which was fantastic. And then I go to San Diego Comic-Con and Ryan is at the Image booth and he's talking to somebody. So I'm just kind of flipping through his art book there. He has no idea who I am because we've never met before. And I'm flipping through and there's the Critter cover in his book. And I just kind of leave it open and stand there like a numbnuts and wait till he's done with whoever he's talking to. And then he turns to me and he's like, hey, what's going on? And I pointed and I didn't even do anything. I was like, I might as well have been talking to Tom Cruise at the moment. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just pointed at the Critter piece and he was like, oh yeah, that's for a guy doing his own book. And I was like, yeah, I'm the guy. and we hit it off and we had a great time. And I took him to dinner at San Diego Comic-Con. What a freaking moment that was for me. So, so again, it's time machine stuff. And that's what comics, man, they'll date you in a hurry. But it's a great time machine, whether it's your own stuff going back to it, or whether it's like, hey, I remember when I met Claremont or whoever, reading Inferno, and holy cow. So yeah, it's use it as that time machine piece. Yeah.
So of all the projects that you have worked on, what has been your favorite one to work on?
Critter. Everybody knows that answer. It's on my business card. It says Tom Hutchison, writer, something, something, something. And then in quotes, like the old days of the message boards, right? You had to have your fancy, weird name. I was Critter's daddy. So on my business card, it says Critter's daddy in quotes. I'm a superhero guy. I that's what I started with. Well, it's not what I started with. Technically, I started with Godzilla, but I moved quickly into superheroes and all that kind of stuff in comics. And so when I first started writing, superheroes was the obvious choice. And so with Critter is I have 3, I guess, long running series now. Critter is one of them. And I love superheroes. I love the blend of superheroes, science fiction. How do you do these things in ways that superheroes let you do anything? I mean, obviously any story you can do anything. You can tell a horror story that's a time travel stories, anything. But superheroes are just this unique thing, this little blob that can be twisted and turned in so many ways. And I will always love writing Critter and writing superheroes. So yeah.
Nice.
Do you have a and I know the answer to this, so I don't even know why I'm asking it, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have a Critter story in the chamber, as it were, ready to go for the next book?
Oh yeah, 100%. I have the
I knew the answer.
Yeah, I have the next 4 issues basically plotted out, and then from beyond those next 4 issues, which would get us to issue 25 of the series, I then know what the next sort of 20 or 30 issues would be, within a general context. So, and that's the case with basically all my books, because all of my books are ongoing series. Now they do have sort of finales, right? So like I was talking yesterday about Legend of Oz, there is a sort of finale for what I'm currently doing. We will reach a point where that story is done. Now that doesn't mean that Oz is done. That doesn't mean that we can't follow the Scarecrow or follow the Tin Man or follow the Lion or follow General Ginger or whatever we want and do more stories. But there is a finale. Same with Penny for Your Soul. There is a finale for all these things, but they are long term. Everything that I do is long form storytelling. I've done miniseries. I don't really like them. I like the idea that I can build something issue by issue into a larger whole that can kind of eventually end. Like eventually we're going to reach issue number 30 and boom, we've told our large scale story. But to me, that's what comics are. It's like, today it's just it's a nightmare, comics, because everything is like, oh, remember in the 90s, right? It's like X-Men #1, the first new X-Men #1 in 40 years. Well, now we get one every 2 years, new X-Men #1. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything anymore. So I always loved, when I got my first X-Men book, I think it was like 210, like whichever one, where Storm beat Cyclops for to lead the X-Men. She didn't even have any powers at the time. She's sporting the mohawk. I just dove into the issue. It's just like, that looks cool. I bought it. Now we're so concerned with like, we need #1s all the time. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I don't buy into any of this reboot stuff. Obviously we need #1s because we need new series, but we don't need to just keep retconning and reboot. X-Men volume 87, #1. Like, who cares? Just let the numbers run, man. I forgot what we were talking about.
I asked if you knew what the next few issues of
storytelling. Yeah, that's right. Storytelling. I just like this. Just the story just needs to keep going, man. I don't care what number it is. Just let the story keep going. You don't have to reboot, retcon, reset. Just keep going. People will get it. Don't worry about it.
I think my favorite series is the Princess versus Zombies. When am I getting more of that?
Yeah, that one was such a bizarre outlier. Like, we did this tiny little 69-hour Kickstarter campaign for an 8-page preview book for Princess versus Zombies. Everybody lost their mind. I was like, oh my God, I guess I have to do this book now, because I hadn't really planned on doing it, because this would have been last year. So last year it was our 10-year anniversary. So we had Penny for Your Soul stuff and Critter stuff because it was their 10-year anniversary. So we wanted to kind of try and focus on that stuff. But then the Princess versus Zombies was so popular that I was I was like, okay, I guess I have to do this. And so we did it last year, right as COVID was like really spiking in April. And people were like, dude, you cannot do a Kickstarter right now. I was like, well, just go ahead and watch me. And so we did it, and it was our biggest Kickstarter ever. And people love the book. They got the book, and people love the book, and people get, where's more. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So I guess we have to really do this. So, cause like next year is like so booked. It's the 10-year anniversary for Ursa Minor. We have a toy company that wants to make a Critter toy. We have Camp Rad Dog that we want to do again with Jim. We already know what that is, because we planned that before the last one even ended. And it's just like, holy God, I don't even know if I can do it next year, but I want to get to it. But
I'm a patient woman. I can wait.
You are the minority. Everybody's like, dude, now give me a thing.
You guys are doing so much, and everything that you've done, I've loved. So I can definitely tell. Like, I was like, okay, let them take their time on this, because if you don't bring back the blind chick with her dog eating zombies, I'll be sad. So I'll wait, but make sure you bring it back.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it. So you're a great person to ask, Jen. Did you understand the weird twist ending?
Oh my gosh, I just blanked out.
And I'm putting you on the spot, and I realize that.
Because like I said, I read it when it first came out, and I read it, and I was like, oh, I need some more. Right. And then I haven't really got a chance to read. Like, I've read, we got the Legends of Oz set, where I got one of like all the comics, or one of each one. My favorite one was the green kind of like shiny one.
Right.
So I'll have to go back and reread it again to try and remember what it was.
Right. So, well, I'll just tell you and see if it rings any bells, because I did something strange with it.
I remember something. I remember it being, I was like, wait a minute. I think I had to read it twice, and now I'm trying to remember why I had to read it.
Yeah, I did something weird with it, but it all works within the context of everything else that we've done. When you get to the end of Princesses, I shouldn't tell people this, but I guess, I don't know, if people don't understand it, then they might not get it. So at the end of Princesses versus Zombies, two of the princesses, one saves another one, and they kind of have this hug, and it's kind of like, okay, here's the end of the story. But then you turn the page, and there's a little bit more, and the little bit more is now you've instead of being like right on, trying to get like right on the action, you've now pulled out to this widescreen, right? And across the image, well, first of all, there's two heads. It's sort of like Mystery Science Theater 3000. There's like two heads sort of in the foreground.
Yeah.
And in the background, you see that same image from the previous page, but across it says directed by somebody. So basically, Princesses versus Zombies is a TV show that exists within the Big Dog Inc. universe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at that screen again, and through that whole scene, it's like a 3-page little scene.
Okay.
You'll see like it's somebody watching TV, and you'll see a little thing at the bottom right that says something like suggested, other people watch, something like that. And it has Lights, Camera, Jungle, or Throne of Bone, which is the other TV show that exists within the Big Dog Inc. universe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, right. So we actually have created the Big Dog Inc. universe, and then entities
TV shows
within. Right. Because Lights, Camera, Jungle, which is our Jungle Girl slice of life / comedy drama. Those characters exist in the Penny for Your Soul and Critter universe.
Okay.
A lot of people aren't catching all of the little threads, but they're all there. I promise you, they are all there.
All out and read all of it again. I'm not mad about that. Like I love going back and looking at it because the art is such a different style than some of the other stuff I read. Because I usually read a lot of stuff like Aliens. I've read every Aliens comics and book and all of that. And then I also have been reading like Stray Dogs. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I need every type of art style. I love it.
Yeah. It was really fun to do. It was strange to do.
Why do I always pick the strange ones? Everybody's like, "Oh, that one was a hard one. That was a weird one." I'm like, "But that was my favorite."
It's fine. I mean, the fact that Critter and Penny for Your Soul are the only two connected universes is already makes no sense. But they do. They exist in the same universe. There was a story where Critter went to Vegas and interacted with the folks from the hotel. They're in the hotel in Vegas. There is a restaurant called Adam's Ribs, run by Adam, like the Adam. So it's Adam's Ribs is the restaurant.
Okay.
And then in Lights, Camera, Jungle, there is a reference to Adam's Ribs. So all of that is within the same universe.
Oh, we're talking about food again. No.
Yeah.
First interview was about pie. Second one was about steamed buns, and now we're going to talk about ribs.
So yeah, and I will say this. While I love the idea of Adam's Ribs as a restaurant because it's Adam, like Adam and Eve, like I love that so much, I absolutely cannot take credit for it. I cannot take credit. There is a legitimate, real Adam's Ribs, or at least there used to be many years ago, in Maryland. As you come across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, a handful of miles inland, there is Adam's Ribs. And that has stuck with me for so long that when I started to write Penny for Your Soul and Adam became part of the story, I was like, oh my God, there is my stupid little Adam's Ribs joke, and we're gonna toss it in there because even as a kid I was like, is that like a joke? Like, do they know what they just did, or is it literally just owned by a dude named Adam and they're doing like? And I have no idea why they named it Adam's Ribs, other than I'm sure it was probably named Adam. But I always got the joke immediately, like that's hysterical. I'm like 13 years old and going ha ha, from the Simpsons. So yeah. So I can't take credit, but it is definitely a life moment for me put into the books. So. And Val was asking, is there any time I'm not creating or writing a book in your head? Basically, no. Even when I'm doing things like shipping comics, packing and shipping and stuff, while I kind of try to go brain dead a little bit there and I put, TV or something on in the background just to, have sound happening.
Yeah.
even then it's like I'm still kind of usually tinkering around because I usually have to do something in that regard when I'm done. So it's like, okay, I'm shipping, but when I'm done, I got to go write this script. And so I'm monkeying around with dialogue in my head or trying to set up a scene or whatever it is. So it's kind of always there. The only time I'm really not is when I'm selling stuff, because then it's a whole different mindset. Then it's like, hey, I've got whatever I've got, and I want to sell these books to you, whether it's my books or whether it's stuff on the Midnight Collectors Club, where we sell Marvel and DC and Dark Horse and whatever else that I just happen to buy in these collections. Then it's a different mindset. But any other time during the day, it's like right before I came out here, I went and took a walk around the lake for about an hour. And during that time, it's like, okay, what am I doing? I got to come back. I know I have to do this show. Then I got to do some shipping. Then I got to write this thing for this guy and on and on and on and on. So, it's creating. It should be a constant thing, but that's also sort of a privilege for it to be a constant thing, because not everybody has the ability to, just kind of focus on that. A lot of people have their 9-to-5 jobs and they have to go and do their job, and then they come home and they have to, focus in on doing it. So it's definitely a privilege to be able to do what I do, because it's really all that I do is comics one way or another, whether I'm creating them, selling them, shipping them, doing shows like this about them. It's a privilege to do it. So, and we've kind of gotten our shit together here over the last year or so. Because it's building the infrastructure for Kickstarters and stuff is just mind-bogglingly difficult. And we've been late on a number of projects. We've always fulfilled every single time. We've never missed a fulfillment, but we have been a couple of months behind from time to time. So sometimes longer. One time I had a printer completely drop out on me. So I had to go find a new printer, which took us months. So I was like, good Lord. But things like that happen. You just you just have to keep going. I mean, if bad things happen and you just bury your head in the sand and you don't learn from it and you don't figure out how to fix it, then you can't move on. And so for us, we just kind of keep moving. We just kind of keep going. We try and correct whatever we can correct and try and be as on time as we can.
So you definitely do take a lot of things and like twist them in very beautiful ways, and I love it. But where do you find your inspiration? Does it just like pop in your head, or is there like something around you that like you'd be like, oh, I want to do it like that?
There's been a lot of things that have sparked. Like when I did Penny for Your Soul Volume 2, I didn't know how to introduce a character at all. Like I was like, I want to do something weird, but I don't really know like how to do it. And then I went to the bank. And I came out of the bank and some girl went zipping by on a little moped thing. And I was like, oh, I'm doing that. That's how we're going to do this. And so we did it. So now obviously that was just like inspiration for kind of like a moment. But as far as like books go, it's terminology, words, phrases. Like that's how the Legend of Oz came by is I was basically I drive to cons everywhere I go. I drive. So I'm driving through New Mexico, Arizona. It's just cactus and desert and whatever, and all of the terminology starts to blend. You have it's the Wild West, right? So then you have with Oz, you have the Wicked Witch of the West, you have the Wicked Witch of the Wild West. What does all this mean? And it just starts to
snowball.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so the Wicked Witch of the West, Wicked West, we could have the Legend of Oz, Wicked West, blah blah blah. Okay, Dorothy can't wear ruby slippers. What can we do? Kind of spurs would be kind of cool. There's ruby spurs. Toto could probably still be a dog. That would be pretty easy. But we know if it's a Western, she's going to have to ride a horse. Toto became the horse, and just go and go and go and go. So sometimes it's just little tiny triggers. Adam's ribs, right? And then sometimes it's sit down and like, okay, I want to make a thing. How do I make it? Like Princesses versus Zombies. Princesses versus Zombies was not a thing. It was not so, like people. The only reason that Princesses versus Zombies exists is because I hate everything zombie. I basically hate it. There's very little zombie stuff that I like.
Aw.
Yeah, and that's why there's tons of Walking Dead sucks jokes in Princess versus Zombies.
I thought it was just me. I was like, okay. I mean,
yeah,
I don't like those types of zombies, but when you have like World War Z types of zombies
yeah.
or 28 Days Later types of zombies, I'm just like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
are the type of zombies I like. The ones that could actually probably take us all out. Those
Right.
are the zombies I want. The slow shuffling ones, meh.
Right, exactly. And so people kept asking me, well, how would you write a zombie thing then? And I was like, I don't know, because I don't care. I wouldn't. Exactly. And so when I was at Baltimore Comic-Con a number of years ago, I was there with Jesse Wichman and a couple of BDI fans, the Buchanans, and we were at Hooters, as you do. And
totally shrimp.
Somehow we got onto the talk of, okay, so how would you write a zombie book then? And I said I would probably only write a zombie book if it was something just completely outlandish and bizarre and left field, like Princesses versus Zombies.
Yeah.
Like that's literally how it happened. And just like Adam's Ribs, that just stuck with me. And so about a year or two or something later, I went back to Jesse and I was like, Jesse, do you remember this thing, this Princesses versus Zombies thing? And he was like, yeah. I was like, do you want to like do this? Do you want to like help me design these characters? And he was like, yeah. So over the course of about a year or so, we debuted the princesses as art prints at Comic-Cons. That was their first appearance, was these art prints. And so we kind of built this following for a book that didn't exist. Because people saw the characters and they were like, yo, what is this? Yeah. Where's the book? I'm like, there's no book. There's this art print. And then we'd put out the next one. Yo, where is this book? There is no book. Yeah. We took it to horror shows. We had no book. We had the art prints. They were like, yo, where is this book? And I was like, okay, that's where I knew. That was it. I was like, okay, now I have to do this book, because if the horror people are freaking out on it, I have to do this book. And that's where I had to start to figure out, like, what the hell is this thing going to be? And so on and so on. And it went through a lot of incarnations too, to become what it is. But what it is, I'm very pleased with, and the fans are all pleased with it. And that's really ultimately what matters.
All right, cool.
So Kyle's back, but he's muted.
Yes. So I have to ask the most important question of the day.
Okay. Yeah.
If you could only eat one pie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Chocolate.
Just plain chocolate, not like chocolate pecan or silk chocolate, or.
Well, I mean, I think all chocolate pie is silk chocolate. I think that's kind of what it is, isn't it?
I have a big confession. I don't like chocolate.
So you need to just turn her off, Kyle. Just shut that down. We can't have this kind of anti-chocolate sentiment running around here. But yeah, chocolate silk pie is basically, I think that's what it is. There may be other versions of it, but no, I don't like, pecans or walnuts or any of that kind of stuff. So I don't like, and I don't do fruit either. Like fruit is a no, get it out of here. So yeah, it's just give me a chocolate pie with some, some whipped cream around the edges, and we're good to go. Yeah.
The answer to that question for me is pizza. Pizza pie.
Fair. It's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
To be fair.
No. So I wanted to ask you, because we're running low on time. Who's your Super Bowl picks this year?
Oh Lord, I haven't even figured it out. It's hard to pick against the Buccaneers simply because the whole freaking team is back, which is such a rarity. Now they're all older, of course, but when we find out that Brady was playing on a bum knee, and he's healthy, it's like that's really hard. Now, obviously, any given Sunday is what they say, right? Any given Sunday, a ball can get tipped, it can be picked off, anything can happen. But it's really hard to not say, look, they are the odds-on favorite to be there. As for the other side, like Kansas City, I don't buy them now. as I did last year. I think a lot of things have changed player personnel wise. I think Buffalo is surging. And my bet would be that they would come out on top of a matchup. The Buffalo over Kansas City would probably be what would happen this year. So I would probably lean in that direction.
I think your Chargers have a real shot.
No,
I also think
we don't. I'll tell you right now, we don't. And I'll tell you why. And it's a very simple reason. All of the starters are fantastic. All of our backup dudes are garbage. We have no depth. So the instant the injuries happen, it's all downhill.
I was just gonna say that they're gonna have to have a really good year injury wise,
right,
for it to play out that way. But I think they have a shot if they stay healthy.
They will make the playoffs. I'll tell you right now, they'll make the playoffs. Yeah,
I like the Buffalo pick, and I would not bet a single dollar against a pissed off Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
and I think that's a thing.
I mean, listen, their division is so weak. Their division is so weak. They're going to win their division, so they're already a playoff team. There's not a lot they have to do to make the playoffs. Once you're in there, I don't know. You have Brady is so monumentally good at finding a way to win. Even if it's with a kicker, that's the old thing. Like Joe Montana, I never had to have a kicker win my games. I threw touchdowns, man. But the reality is he's got the rings. So, he's got, and he has the exact same team.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't bet against him. I equate this year for Aaron Rodgers like watching Alex Smith at the end play for his career. He's playing to survive.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I think it's kind of the same. But I really like your Buffalo pick a lot.
Yep. I think they've got everything kind of locked in place. I mean, obviously Kansas City is not a schlub team, but I don't buy them. I don't buy them as the powerhouse that they were looking to become. That's all I see there. And I think the Chargers are better. I think the Raiders are better. I think the Broncos with Teddy Bridgewater and a quarterback will be better because they still have a great defense. So I think the AFC West is going to be brutal. I think it's going to be absolutely brutal. And that should make it fun. So, yeah.
I'm sorry. I watched the wrestling, not the football. I watched the soccer, which is actually the football, but
Tom and I think this is the thing we bonded on most is we both have a love for football, and particularly fantasy football that's maybe a little unhealthy.
I can get behind all the cheerleaders though.
We have a 20-team league again for Big Dog Inc. We filled out the entire 20 teams, and it is just madness. And I already have a freaking guy that's out for 3 weeks, and we haven't even started the season yet. So thanks, T.Y. Hilton.
I didn't sign up this year just because I wasn't sure my heart could handle Tom's scoring system for another year. I am actually taking an entire season and only playing on FanDuel.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I'm not in any of my normal leagues. I'm going to take an entire season and do weekly draft and see what happens.
Yeah, I do FanDuel stuff. I do okay with FanDuel. Not spectacular, but I do okay.
I just think the challenge is interesting of every week looking at every matchup and seeing who's lined up where.
Weirdly enough, when I first started FanDuel about 4 years ago, I actually won $2,000 on a hockey game, a hockey, whatever they call these things, a hockey whatever. And what was funny was it was the last game of the night, and I can't remember the dude's name. He scores a goal. Or no, he got an assist. Which is what put me over the top and put me in the top spot. I went from $200 to $2,000, and I was losing my mind. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then the game ends, and I go back to check my account to see like if the money's in there, and it's not there. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? So I go and I look at the game, and they took away his assist, which put me back into second place on this in this thing. And I was like, no way. So I went to the official stats on the NHL.com, and I'm like, yo, it says assist right there. It's right there. And so I just kept refreshing FanDuel. I'm like, you better find this assist, dudes. You better find it. And it took about 4 hours, and it finally popped back in. And I got the top spot. And I've never had a top spot since, but I got one, and on all things hockey, which I know basically nothing about.
Oh my gosh.
I've been doing some FanDuel baseball stuff that's been wild, but it's not. I'm excited for football because it's much more controllable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in the last few minutes, tell everybody where they can go to give you money, where they can support Big Dog Inc., where they can buy
Where
the
can
things.
they find you?
Yeah, so of course we have BigDogInc.com. That goes right to the store. All the stuff that we've got from across all of our titles is there. If you do Twitter and Instagram, it's BDI Comics. If you're on Facebook, just look up Big Dog Inc., or you can find me too. And then we do Kickstarters. We do Kickstarters quarterly as far as our big campaigns. So our next one will be in October. And then we do occasional little things throughout the year as well, little like week-long bonus. Like we had Goth Day became a campaign this year, that kind of stuff. Princess Day, and we do all kinds of weird little things like that. But and then I do the Comic Book Shopping Network on Facebook. It's a live selling show. I have one show called the Midnight Collectors Club Sunday night tonight, and then we do the Big Dog Doghouse show on Wednesday nights, where it's pretty much all Big Dog Inc. stuff. So if you don't know enough about Big Dog Inc. yet, you're welcome to come hang out, chit chat with all the other fans and buyers, and ask questions and see all the cool art and so on. Yeah, Gaval, the next Kickstarter is October for The Legend of Oz, The Wicked West. We're going to be starting to tease all that stuff out here very soon, because it's only about a month away, a little over a month away. So that'll be what's next. And then as we roll into January for 2022, there is a very, very big opportunity and chance that we will be doing a Kickstarter for the first ever Big Dog Inc. toy action figure, and it will be for Critter. The molds are basically pretty much done, or I should say the 3D modeling aspect of it. Once we get the modeling done, then they'll make an actual physical piece to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to work. And then once that gets approved, that's when we take it to market, and we're aiming to do that in January of next year. So that'll be super cool if we can get all the dominoes to fall properly.
Definitely. And then hopefully by 2023, more Princess versus Zombies.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I've got. 2023 in my calendar. Yes. Or 2025, whatever you feel is good.
Well, we did. Weirdly enough, there was a post I made a long time ago. It was like 2 years ago, maybe. And it was just a random post. Something I think I was seeing so many books that were just like based purely on like sex and just whatever, that kind of stuff. And so I made a post like, I haven't really done this type of genre before. I mean, we've done like sexy covers and stuff, but as far as like making a story that's about this kind of thing, we're never going to do it. So I'm announcing now that in 2025, I'm going to be doing a book called Lingerie Wars. And everybody took it seriously. It was kind of like the Princesses versus Zombies thing, right? It was just like, oh, Tom said something. It's on the internet.
It's a thing.
It has to be real. And so for like, I don't know, like 6 months after that, every time I was on a talk show, they were like, so tell me about Lingerie Wars. I'm like, yo, this is not real. And
Coming soon.
but now coming soon. Yeah, now apparently coming soon. 2025. I still got like 4 years to figure out even what it is, because I don't even know.
You can definitely do it. It's just going to be Victoria's Secret models just shooting people with grenades or something.
I don't know.
I love it.
So there's that. That's be careful what you tell people, because then they want it.
Definitely. I mean, next time you want to do it, just do like an April Fool's Day. Do ... April Fool's
Right.
Day.
Make all that's correct. That's like the easy out. Like make all your official announcements on April Fool's Day. That way, whichever ones are really good, you can be like, ha ha, fooled you, we're doing it. And if they're really bad, you can be like, yeah, it was April Fool's Day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was April Fool's Day, man.
Yeah, just
Hey,
make like
where's Starnes?
100
Because it was
announcements.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, just a list of like, this is what's coming. And then like let everybody be like, well, I like that and I like that and I like that. And you're like, oh yeah, it's all just a joke. And then bring the stuff out later.
Right. Just be like, here's a idea of poll, maybe. Tell me what you like.
Right. The April Fool's poll. None of this is real unless you want it to be, you know.
So perfect. Oh, everybody's killing me today.
So I had to step away, but I just want to come back. We're out of time. Tom, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, sure.
You always sign up. You always are down to do these crazy things when I come up with these ideas. So I appreciate that from you, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. And I'll see you. I think we have a couple of shared conventions coming up, assuming they happen. So I'll see you in person very soon.
Yeah, my next con is next month, assuming it happens. It's Detroit Pop Fest. Or not, what am I talking? I'm totally
Monroe
like
Pop
murdered that. Monroe PopCon. I cross-pollinated that with the old Detroit fanfare thing. It's it's Monroe. It's near Detroit, but it's in Monroe. So that's where I'm going to be next in September. Just about 3 weeks.
Yeah. And at that show, the Experience is sponsoring the cosplay contest.
Awesome. So, there we go.
We'll be there.
Beautiful.
So I'm excited to see you in person and to like virtually like from 10 feet away give you a high five or something because safety. So
sounds good.
We'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in just about a minute with Joshua Starnes from Red 5 Comics. We'll be right back. See, Jenna didn't know I was going to bring her back on screen. She was dancing.
I do that. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize this, but like when we're doing like what's in the box or minute to skim it, we play the music. I'm just like, yeah. And then it stops.
Jenna was totally vibing, and then it stopped, but she was on the screen when it stopped, so everybody got to see it.
They got to see my stretch at the end.
Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of day 2 of our Post-it anniversary celebration. Once again, as a thing, the 1 year anniversary is your paper anniversary. Half of that is a small little square of paper that you write things on. Legally not the product that is trademarked by 3M.
See, I was going to say the postcard.
No, sticky notes, those things. So we are joined now by a good friend of the channel and a good friend of Space Cadets and a great many of us. The person held responsible over at Red 5, Josh Starnes.
Hi, thanks for having me. Like person held responsible. So anything that goes wrong, I am I am responsible for, which is often many things. So yeah, just send all your hate mail my way.
Well, it's interesting. And the reason, so the reason I started using that though is that so many people are no longer calling themselves the publisher or the CEO or whatever. They're, chief whatever, or, chief writer of books or user of words over at, so I don't ever want to ascribe somebody a title that they don't use themselves.
Well, you just use the old-fashioned co-publisher. There are in fact two of us. I have a business partner, Scott Chitwood, who is the other co-publisher. But we use just the old-fashioned publisher lingo. I'm old-fashioned that way.
I like it. I prefer it because it means I know who to talk to when I have questions or I have a book idea. So,
you know who's in charge.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. How did Red 5 come about?
It just sort of. I think probably the way a lot of especially indie publishers do, where a lot of people with the same idea just managed to gather in the same space and it sort of coalesced. I had been. This is kind of about in the middle of the 2000s, and so it was originally formed by Scott and by an old friend of his named Paul Enns, who is still with the company, who was up to that time was the webmaster for Lucasfilm through the early 2000s, and they had known each other for a long time. And when he left Lucasfilm, I think they had been talking at that point about creating a comic book company, and I had some similar conversations with Scott at the same time. I'd actually been working on a book that for a little bit at that time that I was intending then to self-publish back when that was a slightly different beast than it is today. And this is also all sort of pre-Kickstarter and pre-crowdfunding as well. It's probably about 2004, 2005, and I was working as a film critic for a website called comingsoon.net, which is how I met Scott. And sort of he'd been having one set of conversations with Paul, and then he was having a very similar conversation with me. And so it's sort of coming like, well, we've got a bunch of people who are having all the same conversations at the same time. We should just do it. And I didn't realize quite how serious about it that they were until about a few months before the first book came out, a book called Neozoic in 2007. And they were like, all right, we're going to do it. We've gone off we've set up with this printer in China, and we're going to print 5,000 copies of Neozoic #1, and the boxes, the pallets should be here in about 2 months. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't have anything ready yet, but okay, things are going. And that's where it started initially with Paul and Scott really just deciding to just do it. And I was doing a lot of work with them in the back, a lot of logistics work and helping out, especially early on when Red 5 was only available at conventions. It was probably about a year, and some direct selling to retailers. It was probably about a year before it got into previews and started going out to the entire direct market. And by that point, they'd hooked up with the Atomic Robo guys and had published Atomic Robo #1. And from there, it was sort of off to the races. And I continued to work with them through that time, sort of unofficially up till about 2015, where they came to me and said, okay, it is growing now beyond the point where just two of us can do everything. So let's make your unofficial activity official. So I came on and as a co-owner and co-publisher in 2015, just ahead of the 10th anniversary of Red 5, and have been there ever since.
Cool.
I think Atomic Robo was probably for most people where Red 5 first hit their radar.
Yep.
And then, it might have hit my radar again with the Rift.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, that was a really, unique and successful, and a lot of people really took to it, especially with that very striking red cover. It always stopped people in their tracks.
Yes. So Can you tell me, and I've always wondered this, is the name of the company a Star Wars reference, or is
Yes.
is it something else? Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's how
I-
Paul and Scott know each other. You know, Scott started the Force.net when he was in college back in the mid to late 90s. So he was like been at and always has been at like the forefront of the Star Wars fan movement, and obviously Paul was too. And then Paul, you know, worked at Lucasfilm through a lot of the creation of the prequels, and has been kind of deep into Star Wars stuff. So, and that's sort of how they know each other, is from deep Star Wars love. So yes, it is a
Nice.
direct Star Wars reference. And a lot of people who
All right.
did like, the logo design and a lot of like the early art design stuff were guys that basically Paul knew, who worked with from Lucasfilm, were doing like a lot of contract work, and had done like a lot of that stuff for a lot of Lucasfilm stuff.
I feel better knowing that now. Like, I always thought it was the case, but I didn't want to like guess and be wrong.
Yeah,
So,
we even call it our
good to know.
newsletter is Red 5 standing by. So yeah, it's lots of that stuff is in, yeah.
Awesome. How did you come to being a creative?
Well, that's what I was, you know, before anything, because I'd always wanted to write. You know, I've always been in comics at one point or another, from collecting to working in retail to and always wanted to write comics. I always knew I wanted to create them. So I was already working on some of my own when Red 5 was coming into existence, and had already published one of them before I came on permanently as also a co-publisher. And my goal had actually been to do a lot more of them than I have done. The box is my newest one, is only my third one in like the 6 years since I've been with them full time. My idea had been I was gonna, you know, try to do like one a year, but what has happened was that more and more of the business work, as I took on more and more of the business work, it ate up more and more of my time, and there was not a lot of time to set aside for writing. And so I have a lot of outlines and a lot of books that I had planned to do up to this point that just have not had time to sit and work on. And so it was one of the things that actually came about with the early days of the pandemic, especially when Diamond shut down and a lot of retail stores were shut down. And we didn't have any product to send to anyone, and we didn't have any product coming in. And I actually had some free time on my hands that I was able to, like, all right, now's the time to, you know, I've been wanting to go back and do another book and write another book, and I have not had the time to do it because of just having to do all the regular day-to-day stuff. So now that that's sort of on pause, I can take this time at least to go write something else and get a new series out. So I've always, you know, been in creative. I just haven't have not had time to really put as much time into it as I want to. Although I'm now that, especially now that I've got the new book out, part of my goal is to not let that momentum wane, and to keep coming up with new material somehow, and not get sucked back into only doing the business operation stuff.
I really enjoyed the first issue of the box. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I need to step away for just a few minutes. I will let Jenna, in a not Star Wars reference, you have the con.
So I do have to let you know what we've been doing all day today was I've been asking people what their favorite type of pie was, because you were just here at Space Cadets a little while ago, and we went to House of Pies. I think it was your first time, right? It was my first time too. So
it was my first time in a long time, since I was in college.
Yeah. So, so I've been asking everybody all day. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, if you could only eat one type of pie for the rest of your life, what would the flavor be?
If it had to be pie, because if it could be like any pastry, it would probably be like a cheesecake. But if it had to be pie, it would be a pecan pie. And that is pecan, which is the correct pronunciation of pecan pie is pecan pie.
It's pecan.
It is not.
We've already
had this conversation.
I don't know. I don't know if we have enough time. Thank you very much, La. So definitely, I was super glad I got to pick up my number one finally, and the exclusive cover.
Yes.
For the boxes. That 7 reference with the "what's in the box" is just so cool. Was that something that you came up with, or was it something else like an artist came up with?
That was actually something that Jen King came up with.
She would.
Because she always says, you know, what's in the box as a
Yeah.
direct reference to Seven, and even has the What's in the Box show. And when we were talking about doing a variant cover, and she, obviously, like, the name of it was What Was the Box, she said, like, we got to do something with what's in the box. Has anybody ever done that? Are you doing that with anyone else? Like, no one else. Everybody else is doing something that's like specific to the book, and no one's even thought of that. And she's like, I don't think anybody else has. So we like did a quick search. Nobody had done it. We were like, what is it? What's it got to be? And kind of looked at like the poster for Seven. She's like, no, that's no good, because the actual poster for Seven that I hadn't looked at in years is kind of boring.
It's like what, Brad Pitt's face at the top or something, and then Seven, and then people. So it's don't know anything, man. Don't know anything.
It was that period, that poster period, where it was all like half silhouettes of whole faces, and they did that on everything. But we went and we found like a screen grab of that specific moment of them yelling and what's in the box, and I always kind of have like a roster of artists that I'm looking at, especially when I get portfolios coming in or see things. And I had, and there were a couple that I had showed her, but there was one that had just come in from this fantastic UK artist, Simeon Aston, who's done a bunch of stuff for heavy metal. He's got a really cool Kickstarter out right now called Metal Made Flesh. Everybody go check it out. It's amazing. He's done some really weird stuff with Grant Morrison for heavy metal that I also suggest everyone go check out. But I'd seen that, and I knew he was open for cover. So I showed Jen like a bunch of like the stuff from his portfolio. She's like, yeah, that's perfect. Let's do that. So I contacted him. I said, like, we're looking for a cover. What about remaking this image from Seven? And it was a very specific idea, but he was open to it. And it came out really, really well.
Yes, like the blue on it, and then like the faded, like everything on it. I absolutely, it's one of my favorite covers of the year, I think. Yeah. Only behind Stray Dogs #2, I think it was the 4th printing, where it was 28 days later, but with dogs instead of people. Dogs.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. So it's literally like a tie between those two, and I don't know if it's like the movie reference or it's just like because the comics are amazing that go along with the covers. It's just that was definitely such a different idea on sort of the passing around, like that sort of storyline. What inspired you to really like any of the stories that you do? What sort of like gives off the inspiration to start this?
I don't know. It's a different thing. It's random. It's just whatever sort of sparks inspiration. And like my previous book before this was a book called Spook, which is about the CIA capturing ghosts and trying to use them as spies. And that came from, I was at a bookstore, and there was a book about spies that was just called Spooks. It was more like just like a book about spycraft, just called Spooks. And I was just looking at the spine, and it's like Spooks, spies, Spooks, ghosts, and there, that was it. And it was like, and there was no story. I was like, okay, spies as ghost spies, and it kind of, and so a lot of the time it's something like that. Sometimes it's usually I don't get lucky enough to get a title coming to mind. I usually have to work really hard to come up with the title, but every so often, like a word that's the specific title occurs to me. I'm like, okay, that's the idea, that's the hook. And like my current one that I'm working on right now, that I'll be announcing hopefully early next year, is very much like that. Like the word came, and then sort of the hook came with it, and then you have to kind of fight to come up with what the story was. It was a little different, and it was more roundabout, and has just kind of built itself organically to what it is now, where it started out where I was it was just sort of brainstorming with a friend of mine, and we were having a contest to come up with who could come up with basically like the goofiest addition to the Great Lakes Avengers, something like that, like just bad C-list superhero with a terrible power and a terrible gimmick, and mine was, it was a guy with a box that he can take whatever he wants to out of, except he never gets what he wants. And it was probably at that time more comedic than anything else, because it's not going to do anything with it. It's just like a goofy idea. But I wrote it down, and it sort of sat around, and at some point I I decided I was going to write like an 8-page story about this guy with the box, not knowing anything about him other than that's the gimmick. The gimmick is that he has this box he can take things out of, and he calls himself the box. And it was like in working on that 8-page story, a lot of the elements of what it is now sort of came to being. We started out with like a lot of gags of what can he do with the box if he's being like attacked by villains? What can he do with this box he can take things out of, and how can he get out of it? And a lot of that, it sort of led me down the path of his opponents are mobsters, and from that it's like, okay, why who is it who's going, if it's mobsters who are after him, why are they after him? They're after him because they want the box. The box would be the most valuable thing he has, so that's what it is. What kind of person is getting involved a lot on the wrong side with the mob? So it's either going to be a police officer or it's going to be a private detective. And pretty quickly, I'm like, well, I don't want to be a police officer because when you have like magic stuff, but private detective, you're kind of living on the edge of what's legal and in gray areas, and you're in that middle portion. So weird magic stuff kind of fits in that area as well. So that made sense. I'm like, okay, so now this is a kind of, okay, if a private detective is my main character. So now at this point, I've kind of like drifted a long way from whatever it was I was originally thinking of it as. And I'm like, okay, it's a private detective who has a magic box. So now it starts to become much more of a crime story. Now that I know it's involving the mob and it's involving a PI, now we're looking more towards kind of like classic crime fiction like Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler and that sort of thing, and looking to that for inspiration, or more modern takes on that like Michael Mann has done, and things like the modern Long Goodbye with Elliot Gould, which I really love, which is like an out there kind of not what you tend to think of when you think of hard-boiled crime fiction. So I wanted something that was a bit like that, which I was already there because it has a magic box in the middle of it. And so it just sort of built itself organically from there, even with strange bits being added to it because it has a magic box, and it has a mobster with the tiger for a head instead of a regular head. And so I'd keep adding in things like that, which is something that's probably been floating around since I watched too many episodes of the original Tick cartoon.
There's no such thing as watching too much of the Tick. I've seen every episode a couple of times. So I think they did a newer one.
Amazon did, yeah. Like there's been like 3 iterations of it.
Amazon?
Now. Yeah.
I think it was live action. I think it was on Amazon, but I watched that one too. So there's no such thing as too much of the Tick. The big.
So which is the best version of the Tick? The animated Fox, the Patrick Warburton, or I guess you haven't seen the Amazon one, but.
I loved Patrick, but I did like the original cartoon one that I watched. So it's a tie between those two. I really
every so often I will randomly say even a potato can die, and no one in my family gets the reference at all. No one gets it.
I like to do this. So I do this really weird thing whenever like if I'm out in public or even at the store, which you've been to several times. People will drop like random little things, and I'll just be like, and then they're like, nobody gets my references, and I'm like, because it's strangers, Like I went to before pandemic, I went to the mall to get some new Converse, and somebody was like, "Well, to be fair," and I was like, Because in a show, Letterkenny, that anytime somebody says "to be fair," literally everybody has to be like "to be fair," and he's like, "Well, to be fair," and they continue the sentence. So I was like, and then just move on. So and people are like, nobody gets my things, and I just like, I promise I get them. I just don't want to be rude and interrupt you by being like, I understand that.
I got that reference. I'm Captain America, and somebody's made a Wizard of Oz reference. I'm with you.
Yes, I get that reference. It's like, even referencing something is a reference.
That's right. That's right. It is now. We live in a metatextual world, but there's definitely some Tick floating around. I play it a bit more straight than that, but there's definitely some of that. I always like that weird sense of oddness, and the character originated from that similar vein of like goofy, pointless superheroes and the desperate world they live in. And even though it's come a long way from that sort of original conception, some of that still lingers in there. So you get things like that. But and then as I was writing it, it became more and more of a a hard-boiled crime series. It just happens to have, and the characters became more and more straight-laced characters of a crime story that just happens to have this magic box, and the characters start to develop. It started out with that original 8-page story, it hasn't really seen the light of day. It's appeared in a magazine called Mutiny, but other than that, that not many people have. Other than that, hasn't been around anywhere, but it will be in the trade. Although I say everyone go check out Mutiny because it's got by Fabrice Sapolsky. It's got a lot of really, really cool stuff in it. But it started out with basically taking like a lot of archetypes and cliches of the crime story, especially because it's only 8 pages. So you can't do like a lot of setup and a lot of depth in 8 pages. You got to get to the point real quick. So I say cliches are just like useful shortcuts. They're not.
There you go.
So it had a lot of things like that. It had the evil mob boss and had the femme fatale and betrayal and things like that. And then once you get into the story itself, you're like, all right, so now I can actually take all those pieces and start to expand them and find out who they were and all that stuff. So you go from, just the femme fatale who's leading the good guy into a trap now becomes, all right, but they, what happens after they do that, and she's in jail, but they keep talking to each other, and now they've developed a relationship, and now she's become a full-fledged character in her own right. And what happens to her when she gets dragged into all this stuff, and she has the box and has to carry it around and get out of situations, and what does she think about all this, and and how does this affect how they relate to each other, and so warning to anyone reading it, there is a lot of like character drama in there as well. So I hope that's your thing, because that's always seems to end up a lot of that in anything I write, even with all the magical shenanigans and whatnot.
Yes, because I think I literally have a whole shelf of Red 5 books here.
Awesome.
The last time you came in, you brought in a couple that I hadn't seen before, and I was like, oh, that's not fair. So I had to scoop up, I think it was like 3 of them that I didn't have.
Yeah,
yet, so
I think you had like Neozoic and maybe 1 or 2 of the other ones. So
yeah, so there was like I think it was like maybe some early ones or ones that we hadn't had in the store before, and I was like, that's not fair. I'm working right now. I can't. That's not fair. So I had to buy them like later. I like set them aside. I'm like, I'm buying these. These are mine now. Mine. So I do. I think I have everything that you ever brought to Miss Jen's store. I own. Because it's either me or my brother buy it, because we've loved everything that we've gotten from there. I can't think of a single one where I wasn't just like so lost in it, because I'm one of those people. I will pick up number 1 and then wait for the trade,
right.
And so except for the box, I can't do that. I need the next one now. Put it in my hand.
It's at the printer, so all right, a few more weeks.
Yes, definitely. So do you have any like next, like what's planned next, or have you?
For me, or for sort of Red 5 in general?
Both.
Well, for Red 5, for me, I have something that I'm actively writing now. It's just not ready to. It's going to be more character drama, but with a distinct sci-fi concept and background to it. But hopefully, it'll be able to be announced at the beginning of next year. I'm still working on it. For Red 5, we got a bunch of great stuff coming out. So very much next, also starting in September, will be Verge. Verge number 1 comes out. So in Verge, a scientist, it's set entirely in New York in the not too distant future. A scientist has developed time travel, has developed the means for time travel. And what he has been doing with it is to actually go into the past and collect refugees from natural disasters and bring them to the present. So, and basically rescuing like people from Pompeii, from Vesuvius before it erupted.
So that doesn't create a paradox. Okay.
Yeah. Rescuing people who would have died and bring them up, rescuing up survivors of the Mongol invasions and things like that. So, and he brought them into New York, and then he mysteriously died, and his time travel machine was lost. Nobody knows where it went. So what you now have within New York is you have this giant subsection of people from different times and all these different cultures. So you have cavemen and Vikings and samurai and Roman citizens and from everywhere, and they've all been thrown together. And so now you have the new portion of the New York Police Department that has to keep the peace, keep them in line, keep them from killing themselves, killing each other, hurting anybody, and just try to keep things moving along until maybe at some point one day they can be sent back in time, although most people don't think that will happen.
Yeah, I don't think they could be. I mean, that would create a bigger paradox, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
in the science side, man, like,
or maybe their descendants integrate and it just becomes a blip. But for that period in time, it's a lot of chaos. So you have the melting pot has been turned into this giant sci-fi amalgamation, and you have a specific specific department in the New York that just does that. And we focus on the main character, Detective Connie Liu, who is like the chief detective for that task force, and is the one who kind of like keeps the peace among all the different groups. And so a serial killer she believes a serial killer starts targeting just the time refugees. The rest of the police force thinks it's just them fighting with each other, because they do that all the time, but she thinks it's something else and something deeper, and she is trying to get to the bottom of it before some sort of an all-out war breaks out between the different camps.
Yeah, I need it in my hand now.
It's coming. It's great story by an Australian writer named Bryce McClellan. Hopefully the beginning of many. Some great art, and it's just a lot of fun, and doesn't go where you think it will.
Yeah, I'm already super excited. I've been hearing about all this stuff all day today, and I'm just like, that's not fair. I want it all. I love it. Can't wait. I'm super excited. It looks like there's lots of good, like, amazing things coming up over the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, just the stuff that's announced through the end of this year. After that, we'll have Merlin and Hector, which is a story about the young Merlin before he was Merlin, and monsters begin attacking the villages in northern England where he lives, and he hooks up with a thief named Hector, and they're the only ones who believe that what is happening, the only ones who know that these shape-shifting monsters are attacking the villages, and are going to go and try and stop it. And along the way, he's got to find out if he can become the Merlin everyone knows him as, and before he really knows any magic or can do anything.
Oh my God.
After that, there's Download. It's kind of like a pay-on. It's one of Scott's next books, which is kind of like a pay-on to classic adventure movies from the 80s, like Explorers and Goonies and things like that. You have these three teenage friends. One of them is struck by lightning, except it's not lightning. It's a download to his brain of alien technology. And he doesn't really understand, but he has all these schematics in his head, and he has a compulsion to build what is in his head. So he starts making these alien devices that he doesn't know what they do, but he can't not make them. So he builds them, and then they kind of turn them on, trying to find out what it is that they do without being aware, really thinking through the consequences. And also they begin to discover that whatever it was that put this information and this compulsion in his brain is doing so with a purpose, and these different things he's building also, they start to work together towards some greater purpose that they don't understand, and they've got to figure that out before all this stuff is built, or before some nefarious forces come to kidnap them and take the technology from them.
Nefarious. It's one of my favorite words.
Yeah. Should be used a lot in comics.
Yes. For your nefarious plans.
And in December, there will be Mega, which is our big giant monster book that we'll be doing.
Okay.
Keep an eye out on that.
Yes. Giant monster mega book. I like that.
That's right.
So your background wasn't always in like comics and stuff like that, was it? Like I believe you got your degree in I just blanked out what it was in. I'm sorry.
Well, it's true. It is true. I have two. It's kind of weird because my original degree was in creative writing, because I knew I always wanted to write. Then I also have another degree in economics. And
that's what it was.
I have another job that I do like a lot of economic forecasting and statistical analysis on. So lots of different things I'm doing at any given time.
So did you always know you wanted to be a comic writer, or was it like you started off as one type of writer and then it morphed into something else?
I always knew I wanted to be comic. I didn't want to be just a comic writer, because I've always wanted to do like prose and film or TV or plays or anything. So, but comics was just one of them. It was one, and it was a medium I knew I always wanted to work, because I've made short films and I have lots of outlines for longer prose works that I need to make myself have the time to actually work on, so they can turn into some sort of finished piece that I can try to do something with. But that seems to be the big my big problem. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, though in multiple different mediums, and that I always wanted comics to be one of those mediums.
Okay. Does your other degree in economics ever like leak into any of your comics or any of your other
Go
writing?
into the next one. It will definitely leak some into the next one. I'm leaning on some stuff there. I use it for stuff in the back office where I'm trying to do some sales forecasting and the like. But there's definitely a lot of stuff from some of my other work that I have done that is going to show up in the next book.
That's so dope. Does any so with your writing and your comic writing, and then your economics, like, is it? Do they bleed into each other instead of just economics into some of the writing, or does like some of the writing kind of like bleed into that, like all around?
All around, you use all these. They're not that different. I know everybody talks about sort of like left brain, right brain. I don't know. And my experience is like, as I need, something, maybe creativity helps you think of some ideas, even in like static business fields that you wouldn't have had the other way around. And some of the things, especially from structured stuff like my business work, it just allows me, even when I'm being creative, but to maybe be a bit more structured in it, so I can work on, all right, this needs to go here, this needs to go there, and understanding like the large structures that go around what I'm writing, as opposed to just kind of throwing everything at a page and being all inspiration, but not being able to turn it into something finished. I've worked with some guys who are very, very creative, but it's chaotic, so it's hard to get all of it together into one place where it makes sense, and things are getting rewritten and changed all of the time, because new ideas just keep springing up, and it's like, oh, I've got a new, even better idea, so we're going to replace everything we've been working on for 6 months with this new, even better thing, which makes it hard to get to like a finish line. At some point, you have to have something finished that you want to show people. So maybe it makes me a little more structured in that sense, but I think they bleed together a little bit, maybe not in the finished product, but definitely how I get to the finish.
Okay. I could definitely see that, where you can have the creativity of being able to like do like this art and this like writing stuff, but you got to have that structure. You got to have a way to be able to keep yourself online for your deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have that, but I definitely saw a bunch of kids when I went to St. Houston. A lot of people were on the art side of it. I was in the math and science side of it. And they'd be like, oh, yes, I have this painting that's due this day. And I'm like, okay, so you should get it started, right? Like,
no, I'll just do it the night before. I just, whenever it occurs to me.
My husband's the same way. He's like, oh, I can do it tomorrow. Like, it only takes me 2 hours. And I'm like, if you do it now,
yep,
then you don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this chaos. But some people do. They thrive on that chaos. And it really does help them bring out the, like, creativity. But so you're more structured than you are for the chaos, right?
Yeah. I mean, when inspiration comes, it comes. And it's good. And I always like keep a notepad nearby. I write stuff down, and I kind of make some notes like, what did this be useful for? What I was thinking about when I had that idea, so that I can come back to it. But there are times where I'm like, oh, I wish I was one of those people where it's coming all the time. It was a constant flow of stuff, because then I'd always have an idea at hand. Because sometimes it's a struggle where you're sitting down going, now I need the idea. What is the idea? I've got everything teed up for that. But there are other times where I look at it and I see, but it's such a torrent of that, nothing ever gets finished and everything. And it's just idea after idea after idea that can't be turned into anything finished. So it's, I don't know which I would rather have. There's times when I'd like to have that, but there's times when I'm like, all right, but I've got something finished. So that was.
I can't work unless it's chaos. All right, Kyle. I feel like there's got to be a happy medium.
Yeah.
Like, for this whole thing that we did here, the last 2 days have been chaos, but it was structured chaos.
That's right. That's what you need.
This whole week I've been sitting here just typing up posts nonstop or looking at people on the other side of the screen. But it's like, okay, I know that this time is this time for this, so I need to have this done by this day and this. give me my stuff. If you aren't going to do it, then I'm just going to yell at you this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I structure my chaos.
That's right. It's got to be.
I do it to everybody around me too. My ADHD will make me find something else to do if there isn't chaos. Oh, Kyle, talking to us. But there's got to be a happy medium.
Yeah.
That's how any, not just company, but that's how any like life for it to work. Mm-hmm. Even the people who have the most structured life where everything is everything, there's that little bit of chaos of like, what if there was an accident on the freeway and you get stuck in traffic? Mm-hmm. Or what if like the store you go to for groceries is out of your kind of milk or something? Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be that chaos. It's just how to deal with it and how to structure.
Right. Exactly.
So where can people find you on social media, and where can people like go to like buy the stuff?
Awesome. Well, we are in comic stores nationwide. We're distributed by Diamond. You can find our trades in all your local bookstore. We're distributed nationwide by Simon & Schuster. Or you can come directly to us at www.red5comics.com. You can find information about all of our new upcoming books there, as well as buy direct from us. And you can find me all throughout the internet. I'm on Twitter at Josh Starnes Film, and on Instagram at JBStarnes1. And if you come there, you will see my timeline filled with pictures of all the new current and new Red 5 material that will just keep you up as well. You can also follow Red 5 on both at Red 5 Comics and get all the newest up-to-date information. If you come to our website and sign up for our newsletter, Red 5 Standing By, and you will also get both some early warnings about new material that's coming up, and maybe some options for some specialty books that you won't get optioned anywhere else, and the odd subscriber only sale. So come and check it out.
Dope. And so with cons coming back, are you planning on going to any of them, or if there is, like which ones are you planning on being?
We are. Most of what we're looking at now, we actually are doing one right this moment as I speak in San Jose. We have a table at Silicon Valley Con right now. So if you are in San Jose or the San Francisco area, go check out San Jose Con and go find the Red 5 booth. Say hello to Ben and Alex who are manning it today. And then we will be back. Most of the ones we're looking at now are in 2022. So we don't have any more through the end of this year because we weren't, by the time that we were sure we were going to start doing some, most of them had already filled up. But you will start to see us next year. Expect to see us at WonderCon, at San Diego, at C2E2, and hopefully Emerald City. And we'll be, as we get into it through the end of this year and early next year, we'll be putting out a list of all the conventions that we will be at that you can find at Red 5 Comics or in our newsletter.
Dope. So here's to hopefully all the cons keep going, right? Right? Like let me just say a little preface.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I did that right.
I get that. With the pandemic that has been happening for the last 2 years now, has it really like helped you focus with some things, or has it really like hindered some of the things with like just Red 5 in general, like the whole company of itself?
It's both. We were really hot coming out of the end of 2019. The Dark Age had just come out. Angela Del Morte and Machine Girl had just come out. We're very popular. We had a lot of books teed up that we were expecting to kind of continue on from that success. And then everything stopped. And, having basically between, the general economic conditions everyone has had to deal with, and then everything stopping, it changed things for a lot of people. I know it changed things for us. So, it was followed by a year plus of trying to get back to the momentum that we had, and we're still working on doing that. There was some time to focus on things, long-term things that we've been wanting to do, like make the deal we did with Simon & Schuster's to be carried in bookstores, which, if I hadn't had that time, I don't know if I would have had the time to chase that and get that done. But at the same time, we saw lots of changes in distribution throughout the comics industry. And so it's kind of, you sit back and like, all right, now I got to think of I can't necessarily spend a lot of time focusing on old plans I had, because now I got to come up with new plans to do with this brand new change that has been thrust upon us, and get back to that. It has allowed for some time on the creative side, but at the same time, it's still kind of like fighting and clawing to come back, bringing conventions back, and getting and talking to fans directly. And a lot of the things that we sort of took for granted just in the way the comics industry worked, some of them are gone, aren't coming back, or have changed completely from what they were. And now we're in a new paradigm, and we're still trying to figure out what that is, and how to operate in that.
Okay. So what has been? So I know that there's been a problem with paper, and I think there's been a problem with what plastic it is, so you can't get like top loaders and stuff.
Right.
What other kind of like new obstacles have you had try to try to kind of like bob and weave in, or do you feel better for being able to get through those obstacles?
They're new ones, and they're all kind of connected together. The biggest one, and it's one a lot of industries are going through, is labor shortages, and it's kind of tied to paper, especially on the printing side. So we've seen lots of cost increases, and some services that went away or were greatly reduced that have not come back because they just don't have workers to come and do the work. So it's extending printing times. It's forced us to go and look at some alternative solutions, bringing more and more materials in from overseas, but that creates issues of its own. You have to wait a long time. It takes a long time for material to come in through customs and get shipped to where it needs to go through. So fighting against things being late, fighting to get things to come in on time. So there's been like lots of opportunities, but they bring lots of new issues that have to be figured out. And now we have to figure out, all right, we've got to change the way that we go and we order books. We've got to change the way that we go and deliver books. We've got to look at some options we haven't ever looked at before, because we're changing a lot of the way we've handled business up till now, because a lot of things we just sort of took for granted aren't there anymore. And I don't know if they will be coming back.
Okay. We did get a question from Jay Burns. Got here late. Will there be any other of your books made into an animated series or movie on Netflix?
They will be hopefully made into something somewhere that will likely be seen on Netflix. We have several things have been optioned that, or in talks of being optioned, that I hope to see them get made. Not many we've talked a lot with a lot of different animation companies. Most of what we've talked with recently has been in live action. But our book Riptide was optioned by Paramount right before the pandemic, and has been going through multiple rounds of development. So here's hoping that someday soon you'll be able to see that in a theater near you. One of our earliest titles, Afterburn, has gone through several rounds of development, and it's had for a long time had Gerard Butler attached to it. So hopefully that will also likely come to, that's one of those things that of the many things the pandemic has hit. So it slowed down film production, which slows down development, which slows down what does and doesn't get made and how much anybody spends on it. It also has affected what people go to the theaters to see, which slows down whether anybody wants to make material, how much they want to make things just for streaming. We've definitely had a couple of books that we're talking right now with about getting purchased to be made directly for streaming content, as either television shows or movies for streamers. And if we can get those deals done, hopefully we'll be able to announce some of them fairly soon. So I think so, yes, but nothing that I know for sure right now is going to happen. Because nobody knows anything is definitely going to happen until it happens.
Yes, we're living in a weird, chaotic time right now, just trying to find our own structure. So playing off of that, I've always wondered, how does that kind of work? Like, so when you shop off one of your, say, drone, you shop that off, somebody buys it, they want to turn it into either a series or a movie. Do they come back to you and ask you questions on like if they can change something, or do they get the rights to that and they can change whatever they want?
They get the rights to it and can change whatever they want. And they don't necessarily ask us if they can change, but they do tell us sort of what it is they're doing. So for the things that have been in development for a while, and some of them have gone through multiple drafts, and and they'll send us, new drafts of as they're working on them, and frequently we'll have calls with the producers who are working on them, and tell them this is what I thought about this draft. This is what I really liked that I had never thought about doing, or this is something that was seemed off base, or maybe I didn't think worked very well. And some of those notes they may take, and some of them that they'll just ignore and continue going down whatever path they go. So we have conversations about it, and we kind of see it as it's developing. But definitely the producers, they buy the rights to these characters, and they can do what they want with them. So it's always interesting to see what it is they find really interesting, and some of it's very basic. So for instance, Afterburn is the main character is an oil worker from Texas, because that's Scott who wrote it. That's his background, so he kind of wrote what he knew. And and then as soon as Gerard Butler signed on to him, he became like, no, he's from Scotland. And so, okay, well, I mean, you're gonna do what you got to do with it. So that's what it became, and it became much more like European centric and that sort of thing. So it sort of depends on who's working on it and what they're working on with this. But I definitely see it as it's going on, and either go, oh, that's right on target, that's better than I thought it was, or that's way off. I don't know where you guys went from that. And the only thing that's similar between the book and the movie is the title. But you guys go, you do you, and I'll just wait and see what this looks like when it's finished.
Just smile and wave, smile and wave.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm just trying to imagine. Just trying to imagine, like, if that were to happen to, like, one of these big name, like, comics, then the big name people would be like, no, you can't do that. Versus with the smaller ones, like you guys, they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems, smile and wave.
Yeah. I know, it seems to depend on, like, who the person is and how involved producers want them to be, and what they can ask for. Like right now, like Robert Kirkman's gotten to the point where he can demand that he's part of the development process, so they have to take that into account. I don't know how much involved he was when Walking Dead was originally getting developed, or if Frank Darabont just took that on. I've heard lots of different stories, all of them sort of hearsay, from Joe Hill about, like, there were 3 different attempts to make Lock and Key before it actually got made into something people actually saw. There were like 3 pilots for it before there was a series, and I've heard lots of hearsay about how much and this is someone who's been connected to the entertainment industry his whole life, and has done lots of different stuff in lots of different mediums, but it sounded like he didn't have hardly anything to do with at least the first version of the pilot, maybe even the second version, and it wasn't until 15 or 20 years of trying that he was involved at all and something got made. So it sort of depends. I've heard, that Brian Michael Bendis was involved a lot in the Powers TV show, but maybe by the time that got made, he was able to be. And you also hear, stories, the big one's been about Winter Soldier and the people who kind of developed that concept for the Captain Marvel comics, or for the Marvel comics. The Captain America comics had no say, were not approached at all by Marvel about what they did with it. We're not given any extra money, even though they kind of built a big franchise around a lot of those concepts. So I don't know, it sort of depends on who you're working with.
Wow. So it's such a wide world of different things to make everything work, but I feel like everything is changing at the same time, but everybody's finding their own ways to make things work, I guess. Like it just feels like we have about there's about 10 minutes left. Is there, like, anything else you wanted to, like, tell people about?
If you are looking for stuff on Netflix, and especially if you got little kids that like stuff, I did write a TV show on there called Kulapari, which is about fighting ninja frogs with magic powers who are fighting scorpions and spiders in the desert. That is a lot of fun. Mark Hamill did a voice for it, and Keith David did a voice for it, and go check it out. It's called Kulapari Dreamwalker. I always tell people go look at it, and if there's any part of it you didn't like, that's not the part that I wrote. The parts you do like, those are the parts that I wrote.
There we go. Is there anything that you would like tell yourself when you were younger, or like advice you would give somebody who's trying to like just starting out and trying to do sort of the same thing, like writing comics and stuff like that?
Write shorter. Don't plan out a giant epic. Don't plan out the Epic of Gilgamesh that you're going to work on, and it is going to have everything you ever wanted to have ever in a comic, and it's going to last 1,000 issues, and you'll be spoon feeding out little bits and pieces for the perfect amount of pacing. Don't do that. Write short and be prepared for no one to read it.
That's definitely some advice we've been hearing today. People are like, get the practice in first with these small little things, and then wait till later to do your big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there a big one that you're chasing right now that you might have in the works?
There is something that I still can't announce it. There is
okay.
I still can't say anything, but there is a book of mine that I've written that I may or may not have said the title of on this during this show, that we have been negotiating for the TV rights for it for a bit, and it's very close to me being able to say something. And definitely you guys will be among the first who get to hear about it when I'm actually able to say officially that a deal has been done and a show is coming. But so in the meantime, go look for any book you can that has Joshua Starnes on the title, and go buy up issue 1 of it.
Yeah, go.
Not that many of them.
I'm disappointed. It's all good. I can vouch for that. So in these last like 5 minutes, when we were at House of Pies, you got a burger. I remember that very distinctly. Where is the best place to get a burger around you?
There's a local. So I live not too far from Space Cadets in the Woodlands, and there's a couple of different good places, and then there's a lot of chains. So I'm going to try and say not like a chain anywhere else. The 2 places that will be my go-tos is there is a little hole in the wall called Uncle Tony's that I like a lot. And actually, I don't get their burgers too much. I get their sandwiches. They make a great triple grilled cheese bacon sandwich that's fantastic, and they make a ham and swish sandwich. But their burgers are also really, really good. And then there's a burger bar nearby called 3B's that
love 3B's.
Also, which has like 5 billion burgers on the menu. There's no version of a hamburger you can't imagine that they don't have some version of. And I've never had a burger.
My own special burger there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what it is, it's the hot sauce chicken with the bun is upside down.
Okay.
But instead of chicken, it's a hamburger.
Right.
Like it's the burger patty with the hot sauce, the cheese, and then the upside down bun. And they also put, just for me, cheese sticks on it. So
did you you customized one to get exactly what you want on it? I don't know about cheese sticks. That's a tough one. I can feel my acid reflex starting to act up just by thinking about that one.
So my brother actually knows the owner, and they've been like kind of friends on and off for friends for years and years and years. And he took me there, and he was like, "Yeah, get whatever you want." And I was like, "Well, I really want a burger." And he was like, "Oh, but you got to get the hot stuff because I need to see." Because I've done every spicy food challenge here, and that's I've I don't taste spicy. So he was like, "We have to get this. It's really spicy." And I'm like, but I don't feel like chicken. I want to do a burger. He was like, "Well, cool. Let me talk to him." I was like, "Hey, can we get us a burger?" He was like, "Yeah, man, anything for you." And then he saw me. So usually what I put on my burgers is my French fries. And they have the cheese. Oh, they're so good. So he's like, I got them both at once. They were so busy one day. So I just put it all together and ate it. So next time we went in, he was like, "I remember you." And he brought it out and he put the cheese sticks on there. And so now I can't get anything else. It's so good.
It sounds good, but I know I'll never be able to try it. I would my wife gets the giant one that has both the fried egg and the onion rings on it, and just looking. So I end up being with double bacon and mushroom and Swiss cheese, and sort of my go-to.
The beers they have on draft is some I get the Dos Equis with my burger with watching whatever fight is on, and it's just it's a good time. If Kyle ever comes down, I'll have to take him there.
Those are the 2 places nearby that I would go to. Either one of them. 3B's.
Yes.
Don't ask me what the 3B stand for. I drive past it all the time.
Burgers, beer. It's burgers, beer,
Probably
and
beers, barbecue, and brew.
Maybe it's beer, burgers, burger. It's burgers,
no,
beer.
because the original owner was on a football team. I think it was like the Buffalo or Bill or something like that. Whatever team he was on, that's the third B. And they always had that game up there. And I'm drawing a blank because he's not the owner anymore. Oh God, what was it now? Oh, I wish I could.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I'll drive past it tomorrow, and then I'll remember, and then I'll immediately forget again.
Yeah, definitely. You'll just have to put it up. I remember it.
So, I'm so glad you guys had a good conversation. I've been listening. We will. We are out of time, but we will definitely have Josh on more. He's on all the time. Like, he's the neighborhood guy. He's the publisher up the street for you guys. And that's what, and despite wow. I'm going to let my brain reset for a second. He also puts out great books there at Red 5, and we're going to continue to work with them and help support them because they help support us, as always. So thank you so much for being here. Everybody who's watching, it is that, yes, absolutely. It is that time of the day again where you're going to need to refresh the page where you're watching. We'll be back in just about a minute here, wherever you're watching, but you'll need to refresh to see it. So, thank you for having been here. Thank you to Josh Starnes. Thank you to Tom Hutchison. Thank you to our first two guests of the day, Eric Gutierrez and Zing Zin. Coming back, we'll have Marvin Wynn of The Edge at Second Sight Publishing. We'll have America's Tom Zoller of Love and Capes, and we'll have Adam Freeman from Bad Idea and Valiant and a whole bunch of other places. So we will see everybody in just a minute here, wherever you're watching. Just refresh your page, and we'll talk then.